There's also going to be some CSS.
And we're back. No. It is COMP125. That's client-side web development, and it's week 7, part 2. We're just doing a review of stuff that's going to be on our test for next day. So let's take a look at some other stuff. So, okay, so far we've got our contact page. I can enter stuff, but it goes to the console. I want to inject an element somewhere on the page. If I want to put it nicely and neatly on the bottom, right? That's the easiest way to do it. I want to append child to my document, right? So how do I do that? And I would direct you back to your PowerPoints. Remember, this PowerPoint is all about forms, so it's not here, right? You have to know where to look, too, for your stuff. So one of them is, go back to lesson 5, when we talked about the DOM and the BOM, right? Here's the DOM and the BOM. And I want to inject elements. Let's just bring this down one scale here. I want to inject elements or add a child, you know, to the page. How do I do that? So remember, we've done reading, get element by ID, or making a reference to it, returns the element itself, right? What I want to do is I want to go down in here as an example, and I want to inject an element. Let's go back and find that special spot here. So you can find it on the, there's query selector. Query selector, by the way, is my favorite way of accessing certain things. If I want to access an object that's on the in the DOM somewhere, I can use CSS style search or a selector syntax to find anything that's on the page. In fact, that's what jQuery does. jQuery uses like a query selector equivalent. And so you can avoid using large elements. Here's something else. This is definitely something I may ask you to do. Style dot, how do I inject CSS as an example, or change the style of my document or a particular element, right? By using the style attribute plus its whatever function you want. So display would be to display it on or off, right? If I went dot border, I could add a border, right, to an element and so on. We're going to do this in a second. But what I really want to do here, what I'm talking about, is not just display or not just using style, but down in here where I want to create an element. Okay, so there's 2 ways. First, when I want to add an element to the DOM, right, I want to first use the create element method to create the element. For example, what is it? A div? Is it a paragraph? What is it? How am I going to display this information for you guys, right? So I need to create this element. And then once I've got the element created, I want to use AppendChild to add it to the bottom of a parent node, right? A parent node. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I got to declare what the parent node is. If it's the document, I could put document.AppendChild, and that would add it in to the bottom of the document. Be aware, though, this adds it to the very bottom of the document, which may not what I want to do. All right. An example of this would be if I was going to look at my document. What's the bottom of my document? I want to test. What's the bottom of my document for this contact form? Just looking at it, can you tell? What is it? What did you say? The click and submit button or click and send button. What about you? What do you think? What do you think? Larissa, you think that this is the bottom of my document? All right. What about you? What do you think? The bottom. This is the bottom of my document. How about you, Victor? What do you think? Is that the bottom of my document? You don't know. Okay, I like that answer. What about you? What do you think? What's the bottom of my document? There might be a div. I don't know what it is. Can you tell? Is my answer? Is my question? The answer is no, and you guys are all wrong, by the way. Right? The bottom of my document isn't that. The bottom of my document, every element of my is a script an element of my document? Yes, it is. So if you look at the document itself, right? I'm sorry to say it this way. I don't want to make you guys all crazy, but if you look at the document, this is the document. Okay. Look at, first of all, I have all these divs, right? Right? But what about this? These are all elements of my document too. So if I said document.AppendChild, it's going to go after this script here. That's not good, right? Because if it goes there, that means I won't have access to jQuery or Bootstrap, or if any of those things fail, I might have a problem. I don't want my stuff being underneath my script tags. I want my script tags being the last thing on my document. So document.AppendChild would be very bad to do, right? I want it to be after some other div tag. For example, container, right? I can append child to container, but that means it would go after the row tag. So it'd be after here, right? I got the row tag, a class of tag, a row. That means it would go under here, right? And then I've got another one that has a class of call medium offset 3, call medium 6, right? So it would go here, right? Below here, below the form. I can also add it to the form, right? By accessing the form element, right? And doing it under there. I got to put it somehow after this. Remember, there's different ways of doing this thing, right? My container, if I want to put it after my container, that means it's going to have no style whatsoever. Anything outside of my container, the container class itself is using Bootstrap, which is our CSS framework, right? To color our document and make us look like superheroes, right? That's what it's doing for us right now, because we're assuming you have no CSS knowledge whatsoever. It's still going to make you look like a superhero, right? So if I put it outside my container, that's bad. It's got to be inside my container and inside my div tag. That's where I want it to be, and create a new div tag inside here. Wow, what a huge, long, bloody thing that this is, right? Call medium offset 3, blah, 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 right? What could I do to make this easier in my document without actually putting a div tag? The other way to do it is actually to create some HTML elements that I want to inject into. Like, for example, I want to put it inside, underneath my form, right? And I want to make it so that there's an empty div tag here, right? And inside my div tag, I could give this a class of, form values, right? I could do that. So I could something like ID or class of form values. That's my ID. And inside this div tag, I'm going to have it all nicely spaced out. It's going to be underneath my div. It's going to be inside my container. It's going to, all the CSS is going to be retained, right? And then I can inject data in here, right? Because I'm going to use form values as the parent node where I'm going to append the data. There's nothing inside of here, my parent node. So I can inject data no problem like that, and it's not going to corrupt anything else. It's not going to affect anything else. One way of doing it. If I go back to my PowerPoint, right? So the parent node is what you get to look at. What's the parent node? If it's the document, that would be bad. That would be like at the bottom with no styling whatsoever, right? The other way to do it is I could attach nodes, right? Depending on where you want it to attach, right? So attaching node at the bottom is, I can use AppendChild. What if I want to insert nodes? Forget cloning. I don't want to clone a node right now. That doesn't make any sense. Here, I want to insert a node. Well, parent node, insert before. There's different ways of doing it. If I insert before, whatever my parent node is, this is where this will go, before an item, right? How about if I want to insert after? Is there such a thing, right? So inserting nodes specific positions, right? So insert before. I can remove child, right? But is there some kind of insert after? Is there such a thing, right? And for you to for you to figure it out, if I go to insert nodes, if I go back to this, so I want to insert after in JavaScript. Is there such a thing? Well, yeah. So here's now this is using jQuery, right? Be careful when you use jQuery. This is not JavaScript. This is using the jQuery library. When you see jQuery like this, insert after, it exists there. What about other places? Can I just do? There's an insert before method, right? But is there a JavaScript insert after method? Is there, right? And no matter where I do it, there is no node insert after DOM function. I can insert before, but I can't insert after. That's bad, right? That's not going to help me.
What about at the bottom, object that prototype and so on?
That's a different thing. You make your own. You're making your own function to do that.
Can you do that?
Why would we? Right now, it's a waste. So am I going to ask you to insert after in the test? No. Because we haven't talked about any of that stuff. It's too complex. You only have an hour and a half. I'm going to get you to create a div tag like we just showed you, right? So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm telling you how to get A on the test here. I want all you guys to get A. I don't want anyone to get less than that, right? Here's how we're going to do it. So there is no insert after, right? So if I go back to my code, right, and I want to put something in here, I can insert before, but there is nothing to insert before. I want to insert it right at this position, right? So I'm using my form values, right, to do that. What other ways could I insert data, right? I could append child into my node. So the other way to do it is to grab a hold of something like I did before. So if I go back, like I said, so here is AppendChild is actually insert after. That's what it does. So insert after this one. So remember that my div tag, this div tag is the parent for my contact me h1 and for my form, right? So if I go div, whatever this class is, right, AppendChild, it'll actually put it in the exact location that I'm telling it, right here, right? That's the way to do it, AppendChild. However, this is really ugly, and what I recommend for you guys, if you ever have this problem, is adding another class in here. Like, call a medium offset MD6, call it something else, something's friendly. Otherwise, I'm going to have to use a query selector to select this class, get a reference to this div tag, which this has no contextual or reference whatsoever. There's no semantic meaning to this div, right? If I look at this div, it's just a way of, it's a separator that gives me my styling, my column for my class. So maybe I'm going to call this thing, my class, right, is the column class. So I'm going to hit my column class, and I could call it that. An example of this would be this. Is this going to stop or mess up my CSS? No, it's not going to, because column doesn't exist right now. I'm making a class column medium offset 3, column medium 6. So it's going to go to column, says, I don't know what that is, but I do know what this stuff is, right? If I just did this, let's see what it does, right? See what the page does. So if I go back to my page and refresh, does it kill my page? No. But now I have a hook. I have a hook that I could add AppendChild afterwards. Here's my console, and here's my sources, right? And if I look at my HTML for my script, right? For my let's get rid of some of this. You don't care about these things. Let's get rid of all these things, right? But I want my my HTML page. Here's my HTML page, and you can see that I have my form values. This is what's there. I just put that in there. But I also have a class of column. Here it is. There's my column class. That means I can search for, with my query selector, I can search for something that it contains a class of column in it, right? That's one thing I'm looking for. So all elements that can contain a class of column, I want to AppendChild my special div tag, right? That's what I can do. So how do I do that? I've just added one class in there. Now I can go back into here. I don't need this anymore, right? And now I want to create my form values div, right? Let's do that with script only. So remember what I want to do is I want to do that on form submit before I reset my values. Here's where I display my form values, right? When I'm displaying my form values in the console, I'll use the same function to display my form values in the on the page, right? On the page and console. How do I display the form values on the page? I need a hook for that, right? So I'm going to declare this as a variable, right? I'm going to say this will be my my column. So variable column is equal to. Now, how do I do it? Document that get element by class name. Get elements by class name, right? Document get elements by class name. Or I can use query selector, just the column. And the column name, which would be column. There it is. So I'm looking for the column. That column, anything that has a class of column. And now I want to create, so I've got that's my parent. This is going to be my parent object that I'm going to inject code, right? And now what I want to do is I want to add in, I want to create a node, right? If you notice back here, you can't inject something that you don't have. You need to use a create element, document.create element to create something. Like, for example, my div tag, right? So I can do something like this. So if I want to create my div that has a value of form values, right? Let's do that. So I'll say var form values, right, is equal to document create element div. That's the kind of element that I want, right? My form values element, right? Now that I got form values, I can add an attribute if I really want to. So form values add attribute. If I go to attribute, if I go get attribute, I can remove attribute, and I can also set attribute. I can set attribute. The name would be ID and the value that I want to add in is form values. Right, there we go. So that's the attribute that I'm adding into my form. I'm creating my form, right? And now I want to create a paragraph that I have all this stuff in here, right? So all these elements would be in some kind of paragraph, or each individual paragraph. I could do that, right? Yeah, just putting your hand up, right? Or I can put it inside of a, so I could add in another element that goes on to this one. So I can append child this element, right? Or I can insert HTML, right, inner HTML, and see this stuff here that I've got here, that I've defined. Instead of console logging it like this, I'm going to create a string. So let's do that. So I'm going to say var, right, my form value string, form values string is equal to one of these, right? And what I want to do is I want to append all these other values in here, right, in my string. Same as I've printed out to the console, right? So how do I do that? Well, I got the form right here, right? So I'm just going to copy this for a second. By the way, there's many ways to do this. Right? And now I want to get rid of this. I want to say form values string plus equals to this. And I'm going to take the same exact methodology here and add it into here and here. Just bear with me while I do that. Here's my form value string. There's some stuff I got to add in here to make it nice. And we're going to do some other stuff for the horizontal rule. So this one is just an HR. It's a horizontal rule. Remember, this is all going to be HTML, right? So I know I have a horizontal rule that I can use as HTML. This is good. Form string is plus this. This part doesn't make any sense. So I want to do something like some kind of BR, right? And that's what I want to add in at the end. So break tags or line breaks for these ones, right? Just give me the spaces that I need, right? This will be a horizontal rule actually too. I might as well just add a BR tag underneath that just to give a little bit of a space, right? By the way, is this the only way to do it? Absolutely not. There's so many ways to do this thing. It's crazy. And you can find really cool, efficient ways of doing it, much more efficient than this. There we go, horizontal rule and the BR tag, so break tags. So now I formed up my form value string. And guess what I'm going to do with this? I'm going to say my form values dot inner HTML is equal to my form value string. Let's try that. Oh, I do need a couple more things. I need a paragraph tag and a closing paragraph tag. Right? Because that'll give me a paragraph, so that way I can put it in. I could have put this in separate lines too. It doesn't really matter. So this is what it looks like. This is my inner HTML. So I could do something like this. Now, once I've got my form value string, I'll separate this so you can see it. I could say something like form values dot inner HTML. Right? Inner HTML. It's different than inner text or text content. This is actual HTML that's going to go in, is equal to form values string, right? It's going to take all this that I just made and attach it to my inner HTML for my form values. And my form values is actually an element that I created. And guess what? I'm going to add it to my column. So I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say column.AppendChild and then form values. That's going to add it in the exact position that I want. Yes?
You have to list the other
Which ones?
one.
This?
Yeah.
No, that's going to be my console log. Console is different than this is actually on the form itself, on the document. I'm going to do it, but let's just check this out. So here's a question. When I first display my form values, I'm only going to do it when I have data. So this is going to be okay. It's not going to display any of this until I have data. What about when I display it a second time? Is it going to keep my old data or wipe it out? Right? So we have to also think of that, right? Because if I click it once, it'll do it one time. But if I click it again, it'll do it again and again and again because the form's not being refreshed, right? I'm not clearing anything, right? or replace the data, right? But what I'm doing is, here's another thing. It's my inner HTML, right? I'm attaching a node, right? And my inner HTML for my form values node is going to be replaced, right? And it's only lasting in here. I'm not wiping it out, right? I'm just telling you how it's going to work. So the thing you think you're going to get works one time, but the second time you got to fix it first, so it doesn't always do this, right? In fact, I will already have data in there, which means I can check to see if this div tag with an ID of form values exists above it. And if it does, all I need to do is inject the data. If it doesn't, I'm going to create a new node, right? First, let's see if this works. So, and then I'll upload to GitHub. So I'll refresh the form. There's nothing that's been added so far. I do have this thing in here because I left it in there. Let's just fix that. That would be bad. Here's my context. And do I have my form values in there? No. That's good. So somehow it just lasted. So it's persisting. Make sure this is gone. And was that? It's not what? That would be bad. Good. Now that we've got that, let's see if it works. So I'm going to, thank you for that. So I'm going to put in my name. So Tom Jones, let's say. Tom John, or Tom Jones. Tom Jones, tom.jones at example.com, contact number. And your message would be Tom. Send. Okay, let's see what it does, first of all. So I've frozen my browser. Where's my stuff? How come it's not there? Well, I click send, right? Well, that's what's happened is I got to look at my console and see what happens. It says, on content editor cannot read property AppendChild of null. AppendChild of null, right? Why? Because of the way I've captured my element that I called column. I'm using a query selector that's trying to find something called column, but this isn't the complete class. It's column medium offset 3, column medium 6, right? So I could, instead of doing this, because that didn't work, could give this an ID, hook into of column, my column ID, and that means I would change my code that's in here, right? Instead of query selector all, it would be document.getElement by ID again, right? That would work. And then when I go back here, I'll refresh, it's nothing, right? Now there's no errors anymore, right? And I can try it again. So Tom, sorry, I know I'm running late, guys, as always. Uh, 416-555-5555, and then Tom, and then click send. I get this, and on the bottom, I get this inside my page, right?
What if you put another information?
Right. Let's see what happens with the second set. So Tom, so Joanne, put her name in. Right, 416-444-4444. Send. It's gonna keep doing that, right? Why? Because it's doing what I'm telling it to do. It's saying append a child inside my underneath my form every single time, right? I don't want that. If I only want it one time, and again, this is the fix for you guys, I've got to search to see if I have a div tag with an ID of form values, right? I got to search for this. So if document.getElement by ID form values, if that's true, right? If it exists, then I'm not going to append child, right? Only if it does not exist. If it exists, right, I'm just going to do form values that inner HTML. That's all I'm going to do, right? I'm going to change my inner HTML, right? Because my form values is this, right? So there's different things I can switch for, so I can check. So before I do column.appendChild, I've got my form value string, right? And all I want to do is I want to get access to my form values. So how do I do that? So if it exists, then do one thing. If it doesn't exist, do something else. So if document, I can just put, oh yes, get element by ID. Oops. Get element by ID. And I want to talk form values, right? If it exists, remember if I just put if, whatever element is, if that exists, then I don't want to do this. I only want to do it on an else if it doesn't exist. So if it doesn't exist, then append the values, right? This is the only time that's going to add it in, right? If it does exist, it's the first time only. So first time, it's going to add it in. But if after it exists, now we're here again. It does exist already. Form values does exist. I want to then take my form values. I want to get an access to my thing that says form values, right? So it'd be like this. So then I'll make another variable, form values div. We'll call it div is equal to document.getElement.byId form values, right? That's my form values div. And I'm going to do form values div inner HTML. I'm rewriting my inner HTML, which is going to equal to my form values string. I'm just replacing my HTML, my inner HTML, with the form value string I just made. That's all I'm doing. Let's try this one more time, and then we'll go. And then I'll upload it to GitHub, I swear. All right. So let's check this out. So I'm going to refresh. It's gone. Did I save? I did. Tom Jones. Tom.Jones, example.com. This is the longest part. 416-555-5555. Tom, right? No. Send. So now I have an error. Uncaught, reference error, document. Because I spelled it wrong. Document.
You gotta rewrite it.
Tom. I'm a tom.tom, right? And then 416-555-5555. Tom. There you go. Send. Good. And it's there. Now we'll do another one. No. Also Sam and Sam at sam.sam, right? And then 416-555, 5555. We'll make that the same. We'll say Sam, right? And we'll see what happens if I click send. Now let's see what happens. See? So it took the original that I had in here, my Tom at Tom, and it replaced it with this new value because I'm using the same inner HTML values. When I use inner HTML, I'm targeting the node that's inside of my div tag, right? Which has all those special things. All I'm doing is say, well, if it exists, don't add another one, right? If it exists, just replace it. That's all I'm doing. And it's inside, for if you guys to see this code, it's right in here with a little if statement. And this little function that I made, that was a little funny function, display form values, now it does all of this, plus it outputs to the console. And if you look at the console, right, it captures both, right? Am I going to ask you to do something like this? Absolutely. You're going to see me asking you to do this kind of stuff on your test, right? I'm telling you how to do it, though. I'm not like trying to trick you. It's going to be on your test, right? Wednesday, expect it to happen. It's going to be on your test, right? There's no quiz. Want me to do a quiz too? Okay, we'll do it now. 10 minutes. No. Let me upload this to GitHub, otherwise I'll forget, and that'll be very bad for all of you, right? So I'm going to add this in. I'm going to say something like updated app.js. There we go. I know, it's crazy. Push.
Then you feel all of the
6 questions, 50%. That's right. And then you're done. Any questions around this stuff? I know I went long. I apologize, but I wanted to give you the way. I wanted to do more of an exaggerated example of how to append child, how to do an if statement to detect if something's on the page, those kind of things, right? And how to switch different pages. Like there's only one page here. Chances are, by the way, one more thing, I'm probably going to have a single page application you're going to have to work on. So it's going to be nice and easy for you, okay?
You're not going to transfer anything to HTML?
No. Well, this, what I just did, maybe, right? Questions, guys and girls? I think you guys, everything you need for the test. You know, please take a look at this document. You can always use this document on the tests, right, as well, if you need help on how to do stuff. Except it'll be, you'll have to convert the stuff that's in here so it works for what I'm asking you to do. All right? It won't be a direct, it won't be like a copy paste, eh? Just letting you know, right? You'll be able to use it, it'll be a good example, but you'll have to do something else with it. Okay? Guys, good luck, and I'll see you on Wednesday.